get into the early morning game, the early morning game, because we have another London game. We're going across the pond once again in our predictions to decide who is truly the worst Florida team. Now, one thing to note, we have a coach on the hot seat. We have a team in turmoil. And I'm not talking about the Jaguars. Yes, I am talking about the Dolphins, who are coming off 4 straight losses. And if you actually go to Dolphins Twitter right now, because that is a place I felt the need to explore my research, they are calling for Brian Flores' head out there. Now, I think they set the expectations really high coming off a 10-win year. And you're expecting Tua to develop, not be out with a rib injury. Fun fact, Tua is going to be out there this week. So he's back from his injury, joined the team in London. The Jaguars actually already went to London. So they're there early. They're getting their body clock adjusted. And I don't know if that's going to be a huge advantage for them. Obviously, the Jaguars are the most well-traveled team to this facility than any other team in the National Football League. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence, Urban Meyer, these guys haven't had to make the travel necessarily. You know, I don't know how this happens scheduling-wise, but you realize the Dolphins actually play next week? Usually teams that play in London get a bye, but no, the Dolphins get to come back next week and face the Falcons. So that is coming off of a London bye. So that can't be good for them. But as far as just this game in general, I think Tua coming back, you know, it might be more of a detriment to this team. And I mean this because the offensive line, they had to reshuffle it literally last week. They moved Austin Jackson to guard. They shifted around their tackles. And now you have to almost shift around your tackles again now that you have the lefty thrower. The Jags are the worst team in terms of turnover differential in the NFL with a -10. They're both bad teams. No one could really stop the other team's running game. The Dolphins are amongst the lowest in the NFL at opposition's running attacks, which kind of gives me the slightest inclination to say the Jags will upset the Miami Dolphins in London.
You're picking the end of the longest losing streak in 45 years in the NFL.
I think James Robinson could have a day on this team.
That would be good for me because he's my fantasy RB2 at this point. So I would be all in on that one. But let's go back to the Brian Flores thing real quick, because last year, remember when Ryan Fitzpatrick completed the face mask Hail Mary the second to last week of the season against the Raiders? The thing I said was just put that Raiders team and that Dolphins team side by side and tell me what the difference between those two teams were. They basically the exact same team. And the Dolphins won 10 games and the Raiders won 7 games last year. And that was just a byproduct of the Dolphins generated a ton of turnovers on defense, and they were really lucky in one possession games, which both of those things don't usually replicate year over year. Add to the fact that now your quarterback has been hurt for 4 weeks so far this year. It just creates a situation where you were basically a 7-9 team masked as a 10-6 team last year that now is playing with their backup quarterback. So I just don't know what firing Brian Flores is going to accomplish if you're a Dolphins fan. Is it just the rule of the NFL that if you don't make the playoffs in the first 3 years, it's better to just fire the coach and try over again? Because if that's going to be your case, then sure. I just don't know what that's going to accomplish if you're Miami. The joke about the Dolphins for 20 years has been that they always draft offensive linemen and they can never block anyone. And you mentioned Jesse Davis and Liam Eichenberg and trying to switch different positions around and find people that can play different places, but none of them can block anyways. With all of that being said, I'm still picking the Miami Dolphins this week to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars for the simple reason of the Dolphins just have more talent across the board than the Jacksonville Jaguars. Does that mean that they're going to win? No, it's football. Weird stuff happens all the time. The Bears whooped up on the Raiders last week in weird fashion because that's just how football works. Like sometimes the teams with the most talent don't always win, but I feel safer picking the Miami Dolphins to win this week. They haven't generated a ton of turnovers this year, but I do like their linebacking group with what I believe is now McKinney, and he traded for Shaq Lawson and Jalen Phillips off the edge, the secondary.
Jerome Baker's out there.
Jerome Baker's a great one in there. I like that group going up against the Jaguars, even if Jacksonville is going to try and run the ball a lot, which is not great news for them. But I think that they can hold the Jaguars to under 20 points. They'll win the game. Because I think regardless of how healthy Tua is, regardless of whether or not Devontae Parker is going to play or not, I think they can get to 20 points against the subpar Jaguars defense. And so I think that's going to come down to just how many points is their defense going to allow. And maybe this is the week that Trevor Lawrence breaks out, or maybe they get the dumb 250 thing that Urban Meyer is trying to accomplish every single week until he is inevitably fired sometime down the road. But who knows? Maybe the Jaguars do end up winning this week. Maybe James Robinson has 3 touchdowns, but in the meantime, I'm going to roll with the Miami Dolphins here in London.
I think what the general sentiment about coming after Brian Flores was by Dolphins fans is you're a defensive head coach, but the defense isn't good. And we have this young quarterback who hasn't gotten better. Are you the best coach to develop this quarterback? And they just fired the offensive coordinator last year, brought a new offensive coordinator this year. So are you going to get another offensive coordinator while having the same head coach? So I think that's kind of the general consensus by people having a little bit of a disdain behind Brian Flores as they try and move forward, knowing that they drafted Tua instead of Justin Herbert.
So this is the other fun thing you just brought up. We technically don't know who the offensive coordinator for the Dolphins is at this point, because they have 2 offensive coordinators and we have no idea who's calling the plays for the Miami Dolphins. I don't know if Brian Flores knows who's calling the plays on offense for the Miami Dolphins. It's one of those 2 guys. We don't know who the actual play caller is, but I can conclude that no matter who's calling the plays and calling screen passes at the 1-yard line for Jalen Waddle in what is one of the dumbest play calls that you've seen on offense, it is still better than Chan Gailey being your offensive coordinator, because Chan Gailey should never have been hired in the first place as an offensive coordinator in 2020 in the NFL.
I kind of think too, a little bit of it also is resentment for the fact that they could have went to the playoffs last year, potentially if they kept Ryan Fitzpatrick in, but they felt the need to make the change at quarterback. So a lot of people also hold that against him as well, which that I think is more of an ownership thing more than anything. But yeah. All right, well, hey, I'm going with the upset pick. My upset picks didn't really go well last week, so hopefully the Jags got me. Come on, guys. If you really want to go for 20 straight losses, pick up your shit. Let's get it together, Urban. Get a game plan going. I believe in you this week. This would actually be
21 this week. They're at 20 right now. This would be 21 consecutive losses if they lose this week.
Exactly what Kyle said. You want to go for 21 straight losses? I'm talking right into the camera. I'm talking right to you, Urban Meyer, as you turn on this at, I don't know, 3 a.m. London time, whatever time it is over there. Just know I believe in you this week. I got you.